Good afternoon. May I have your attention, please? Dear fellows, dear guests, please rise for the arrival of the President of the Republic of Kosovo, Her Excellency, Dr. Vjosa Osmani Sadriu, and please remain standing for the playing of the national anthems. You may be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. What a great way to finish this great academic week after our visits to Gettysburg and to have the head of our state visit us. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Fjalimi. I'm an international fellow of the class of 2026 and a proud member of Seminar 16. As a friendly reminder, this will be conducted under Chatham House rules. I don't want to read the whole script because we all get it, we're all adults. We are gathered here today for a very special guest speaker, Her Excellency Dr. Vjosa Osmani Sadriu, the President of the Republic of Kosovo. Dr. Osmani Sadriu is the 6th President of Kosovo. She was elected on April 2021, having previously served as the Speaker of Parliament and after being elected as Member of Parliament for 5 consecutive terms. Beat that. She graduated from the Faculty of Law of University of Pristina and received her master's and doctorate degrees in international law from the University of Pittsburgh in the state of Pennsylvania. The President of the Republic of Kosovo is also the Commander-in-Chief of the Kosovo Security Force and leads the country's foreign policy, as per our country's constitution. As a staunch advocate for an impartial and professional justice system, she has strongly supported extensive rule of law reforms in Kosovo. She taught at the University of Pittsburgh in the US as a visiting professor, and in 2017, she was awarded the Chef International Award by the University of Pittsburgh. During her political career, she has also received numerous recognitions and awards all around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome President Osmani to the podium. Madam President.
esteemed Commandant of the U.S. Army War College, distinguished faculty, esteemed officers, future leaders of the armed forces, friends, partners, and allies. It is truly a great honor for me to stand before you today in this institution that has shaped generations of American military leaders. And not only American military leaders, but leaders around the world. Leaders who not only defended the United States, but who also defended freedom far beyond your shores, including in my homeland, the Republic of Kosovo. The very walls of this college carry the weight of history. They carry the stories of strategy, leadership, as well as sacrifice. And they carry a mission to prepare you to face the challenges of today with courage, and to prepare you for the unknown challenges of tomorrow with wisdom. I come to you not only as the President of the Republic of Kosovo, but as someone who grew up during a genocidal war. I was a very young girl when Kosovo was facing a brutal war by the Milosevic regime. It was a time when we were being forced out of our homes, when our loved ones were being killed in front of our eyes, and where our childhood was simply war, conflict, devastation, and suffering. Our very existence was in question. And in those darkest of hours, America stood with us. It was American soldiers, alongside our NATO allies, who came to Kosovo and turned despair into hope, fear into safety, and occupation into freedom. Every family, every single family in my country carries a story of the first time they saw the American flag on the arm of a US soldier. They saw their saviors. For us, that flag is not simply a symbol of another nation. It was the symbol of a promise that even people in the smallest countries would not be abandoned if they were standing for their God-given right to be free. That promise lives on today. Kosovo proudly stands as the most pro-American country on earth. And it is not by accident. It is because your service members, men and women in uniform, kept faith with us when it mattered most. And they do so even today. Ladies and gentlemen, the world you are preparing to lead in is more complex and more dangerous than at any time since the end of the Cold War. Authoritarian powers are testing the resolve of free nations. They are weaponizing disinformation, exploiting economic dependencies, and threatening the very principles of sovereignty and self-determination. Kosovo knows this firsthand. Many years after the war, now recently in 2023, we faced a terrorist attack which amounted to an act of aggression against our country, which was directed and supported by Serbia, Russia's proxy in our region. This was not only an attack against Kosovo, it was an attack on the values that unite us: democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. It was an attack on everything America stood for. It was an attempt to destroy everything American that was achieved in our region. Our response was firm but responsible. We defended our people. We protected our sovereignty. And we did so in close coordination with our allies, primarily the United States. Because we know that the strength of a democracy is not only on the size of a country's territory, but most importantly on the size of its alliances. Kosovo has learned all too well that modern conflict is not only fought with tanks and rifles, but also through propaganda, cyber attacks, and economic pressure, all of which were used against us. Hybrid warfare seeks to blur the line between peace and war, making it harder to recognize the battlefield of the adversary. But our lesson is clear. The resilience of our institutions, the unity of our people, and the trust and the strength of our allies are as critical to deterrence as our military capabilities. Without resilience, without allies, even the strongest of armies can be weakened from within. Some may ask how a small country like Kosovo can contribute strategically to collective security. The answer lies in deterrence. By strengthening our defense, integrating with NATO standards as we currently do, and demonstrating readiness to resist aggression, we raise the cost for any adversary who would consider testing our resolve. For a small state, every act of preparedness is not only defense, but also deterrence. It's a defense for peace, not just within our borders, but for the wider region and for our entire continent and the world. This is why Kosovo's future lies into NATO, not simply as a consumer of security, but also as a contributor to it. Already, our soldiers serve shoulder to shoulder with American troops in peacekeeping missions worldwide. We're already aligning our defense strategies with those of our allies. We're already spending more than some of the NATO allies do. And we are already preparing the next generation of Kosovo officers to learn from the very best, many of whom, as you could see, in this very hall today. One of the defining lessons from Kosovo's existence and experience is that coalitions are decisive. NATO's success in saving lives in 1999 was the action of many nations acting as one, but most importantly, led by the leader of the free world, the United States of America. Today, interoperability, whether in doctrine, technology, or training, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Future commanders will not fight alone. You will fight as part of alliances. And the cohesion of those alliances will be measured not only in military strength, but also in the trust among each and every one of you. The class before me, your careers will unfold in an era defined by strategic competition, but also by strategic opportunity. Whether in Europe, in the Indo-Pacific, or in cyberspace, you will carry the burden of safeguarding not only America's security, but also America's legacy, its legacy around the world. Because when America leads, coalitions, strong coalitions form. When America leads, aggressors think twice. They always do. When America leads, freedom always has a fighting chance. But your leadership is not only about power. It has always been also about purpose. The power of your armed forces is unmatched. But what sets America apart is the purpose for which you use it. The belief that every single human being has the right to live free, that borders cannot be changed by force, that democracy, however imperfect, is worth defending. That is what makes the United States not just a great power, but also a good power, the good power. Your service has always been the line between tyranny and freedom, between despair and hope. It is not only the defense of America, it's the defense of humanity's most sacred right, the most sacred right, the right to live free. Time and again, from the Republic of Kosovo to every corner of the globe, American soldiers have proven that when you arrive, when you are present, lives are saved and the arc of history bends towards justice. This is why your service matters not just for one nation, but to the world. Because when you serve, you do not simply guard a country, you safeguard the very idea of liberty itself. Because of your sacrifice and the sacrifice of your families, children who once hid in a basement now walk safely to school with their backpacks on. Families who once fled in fear now gather around their dinner tables in peace. People that once lived under the shadow of war now raise their flags in freedom. These are the human faces of your contribution, the lives restored, the futures reclaimed, and people, free people, who can dream again because you chose to serve. And that is why Kosovo will always proudly stand with you, because we know the cost of freedom. We know that liberty is never free. And we know that the bond between our two people is forged in sacrifice, in partnership, and most importantly, in shared destiny. As you look ahead to the challenges you will face as commanders, strategists, and advisors, I really hope that you carry with you not only the theories of war, but also the lessons of peace, the peace that you made possible. I hope you remember that the security is never just the absence of war, but also the presence of justice for those who suffered most. And as President Eisenhower said, and reminded the Army College nearly 60 years ago, the strength of a nation can never be measured merely in guns, planes, tanks, and ships. The real influence of a nation in the world is measured also by its people, alongside its military and economic strength. That is the kind of leadership that the world continues to expect from the United States and its allies. So let me end with this. The story of Kosovo is proof that American leadership can change the course of history. It is proof that when free nations stand together, no aggressor can succeed. They don't stand a chance. And it is proof that the values you are sworn to defend are not only American values, they are universal. So to each and every one of you, I say, wear your uniform with pride. It's a uniform that has saved so many lives around the world, including my own, which is why I stand here before you today. Lead with courage, and never, ever forget that the strength of your nation and of nations like mine depends on the strength of your character. The entire world has their hopes on you. And in Kosovo, we will always cheer for your successes and serve shoulder to shoulder with each and every one of you. Because your success is our success. Your strength is our strength. And your leadership is our hope. Thank you very much. May God bless the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, and may God bless the Republic of Kosovo and the United States of America. Thank you.
President will now take your questions. Who would like to be first? In the back.
Madam President, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Katie Tenpenny, U.S. Air Force, Seminar 16. Thank you for sharing your touching story and valuable insights with us today. As Kosovo continues its journey towards universal recognition, it faces significant diplomatic challenges from nations that have not yet recognized its sovereignty. My question is, what is your strategic approach for engaging directly with these countries and countering the narratives that seek to hinder your progress on the world stage?
That's an excellent question. This is exactly what I have been doing for this past week in New York, trying to meet nations, leaders of nations, big or small, from all continents, and simply have a chance for them to hear our story. I think that the main reason why so many of them, some of them, because the vast majority have recognized Kosovo already. We have 119 recognitions, but there are some that have not, mostly in continents far away from us, geographically far away from us, and we're simply haven't been a priority on their table, rightly so, because nations have their own challenges, so they don't really deal with Kosovo on a daily basis. Some have their own domestic political considerations. So strategically speaking, it's important to know how you approach each and every one of them. There's the general arguments, which is the story of Kosovo, where whether politically, historically, or legally, the arguments are on our side on having our right to be independent. And as you know, in 2010, the International Court of Justice decided that Kosovo's independence is in full compliance with international law and does not violate any provision of international law. There's actually a part there where they compare it to the moment when America declared its independence. I mean, it's not like you asked the British Empire, can we do it? You did it because it was the will of the people. And that's what we did. We listened to the will of the people, and that was not only in line with international law, but actually a number of UN Security Council resolutions and international documents that were adopted about Kosovo mandated it. So that's the legal part. Politically and historically, look, Kosovo was a territory under occupation for hundreds of years. We went from being occupied by one force to another force, but we never lost our identity. I am proud to represent a very resilient people that never gave up on its freedom, although it took hundreds of years to get to the point where, with the help of the United States, we became free. However, when you look at that history, you see that we had to undergo a number of genocides, the latest being 98-99. We were victims of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, and I'm sure you have a lot of classes where you're taught about these and about what happened in former Yugoslavia at that time. But specifically speaking, you know, when we talk to some nations, my question is, why would they want to compare themselves with, when they say, oh, we have similar problems in our territory? It's not similar. My question is, why would you want to compare yourselves to them, to what Milosevic did? Because, for example, if there's a nation and is afraid that, you know, certain community there will declare independence, there is no similarity with that, with what happened in Kosovo. Because Kosovo's independence, apart from the legal aspect, also is a result of the gross violations of human rights that were committed against our people and all of the international crimes that were committed against our people. So in modern international law, if I may say this, there's this concept of remedial self-determination, when self-determination is earned as a remedy because you as a people had to undergo all of these gross violations of human rights. And that's exactly what happened in Kosovo. So I would say there are a lot of general arguments, but then in terms of specifics, when we sit down with countries, for some is just common challenges. For some others is a shared future, where for some is, you know, economic cooperation that they're interested in. With some, we even talk about climate change, you know. It depends what their interest is, and Kosovo is there as their ally, as their partner. And my final point with each and every one of them is this: no one has ever lost anything by recognizing Kosovo. 119 nations, but everyone gained something. They gained a friend, a partner, and an ally, a country that will always stand by you and will never leave your side. You know, when the United States needed a country for the Afghan evacuees, guess which was the country that said, yes, we'll take them in 15 minutes? It was Kosovo, of course. When the United States needed to prove to other partners some of their important policies, for example, nowadays, Kosovo was the very first country on earth to adopt a zero tariff on US goods. Kosovo is the only European country that has an agreement now with the United States on third country nationals. So we're supporting the United States, whether on internal security or other challenges that they're facing. Again, I know we're small, but we try to punch above our weight, and sometimes the contribution is much bigger than the number or the size that we are. So also with these countries that we try to approach and convince them to recognize us, there are the specifics on how we can enhance relations, but then there's just the general conclusion that Kosovo is here to stay. We're not going anywhere, free, sovereign, and independent forever. So the sooner they accept this reality and they gain a friend, the better for all of us.
Thank you, Madam President.
Who's next? Vander.
Hello, Falmenderit pro Leccionem Tuae. Thank you very much for coming here. My name is Alexandra Mize. I am a visiting professor in the Department of National Security and Strategy on loan from Northeastern University School of Law. So I very much appreciate your mentioning of the importance of international law. And if anyone takes my lawfare class, we absolutely will talk about some of the things that you've mentioned. One of the hats I wear here is Chair of Women, Peace and Security. And you have been a huge proponent of that. And I have heard you speak about it often. So I was wondering if you might share some of your thoughts with us about the importance of WPS approaches to national security, whether specifically for Kosovo or on a more international level. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's a topic very dear to my heart because of our experience. And not necessarily, I don't want to talk about a one-size-fits-all approach, because obviously each country has their own priorities and their own challenges. But we share the experience of Kosovo, and then there are many countries that try to replicate it. So in Kosovo, before the war, we had the peaceful resistance. For many years, we lived under an apartheid-like regime, where all of our basic human rights were violated, from the right to go to school for each and every one of us, to the right to work for our parents and so on. And during that time, women were leading the peaceful resistance in my country, whether in organizing protests, organizing human rights organizations and so on. And then later on, we started our liberation struggle. So during the war, women fought for our homeland together with men, giving their lives, sacrificing their lives and their families' lives for the freedom of our country. Right after the war, we had a 10-year period of peacekeeping. And women, again, were at the forefront of that process. And then we had the period of state building. So we built our country from scratch. You look at the US Constitution and the US Declaration of Independence, and you talk about the founding fathers, in our case, and mothers. And, in Kosovo, they're alive. You can sit down and talk to the people who drafted the Constitution, who drafted the Declaration of Independence. And these are all experiences of men and women alike. And we've seen that when women are at the peace negotiation table, peace always comes faster and it also lasts longer. That has not only just been the case of Kosovo, but also the case of so many countries around the world. And because peace is the precondition to everything. We can't talk about economic development. We can't talk about a strong security force. You can't talk about a good budget. You can't talk about good jobs, good education or health if you don't have peace. That's the precondition to all, which is why we strongly believe that when women alongside men, all of us together, are in these peace negotiations, and at the same time, they are in security institutions in uniform, whether in the police or the army, there's an additional approach that is brought to the table that has always contributed to the peace coming faster and lasting longer. So given that is, and I know this is also one of the mottos of the War College, how do we preserve peace? In our case, we've learned that it cannot be done if you leave 50% of your population aside. It's just impossible. If you include them, this inclusive approach of men and women alike is good for men and women alike. Because peace is good for men and women alike. And you're not able to achieve it fast if you kick out half of your population from these existential processes for every nation. So we've been sharing these, and of course an important aspect is supporting survivors of sexual violence during the war. 20,000 women were raped in Kosovo during the war by the Milosevic regime. We strengthen their voice, we empower them, and now they have been empowering other survivors around the world. My special envoys travel in different countries from the Middle East to Ukraine to Africa to support them because in too many cases, societies try to silence them after this happens to them. So empowering them so that they can turn their pain into strength and a cause for justice is very important to us. So there are many aspects of women, peace, and security, but there's one aspect that is not, and that's not DEI. It's not. It's not. It's never been DEI. It's about human beings. It's about equal human beings bringing their perspective and helping their nation rise, helping their nation succeed. God knows I had to work 10 times harder than the men in my former political party to get to where I am here. So this is about simply involving those who can give their best for the country, no matter their gender. And everyone can contribute, especially when you're building a country from scratch, from zero, like we had to. So in our case, it's a story that I'm very, very proud to tell, the story of Kosovo. And as I said, there are many nations that are looking at it, but then there are others who have different specifics, and we completely understand that.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Octavia Scott, Army officer masquerading as a civilian. I apologize. Seminar 13, by the way. So you mentioned a point that you are in the state of building your country. The United States Army, the United States as a whole, we're going through a massive modernization effort right now across .mil, PFP, doctrine, organization, training, leader development, personnel, facilities, and policy. From your position, if you had to prioritize your modernization initiatives, would you, and you use the .mil PFP framework, which element is most important to you? Some would say, material, and then the rest of the stuff will follow. The doctrine will follow, the people will follow, the leader development will follow. But then some people will say, of course, we got to start with the people. So I guess my question, a long way of saying, what are your modernization priorities? And to be fair, and you also talked about interoperability, how do we make sure the United States stays synchronized with you so that we don't create a gap as one partner modernizes and the other doesn't?
Thank you for that question. Obviously, our modernization plan is very specific to Kosovo because we're the youngest country in Europe, so we started off quite late compared to every other nation. Of course, we're quite far behind compared to the big nations, also in terms of the budget. But we already spent about 2% of the budget, and we're planning to double that down, so to achieve 4% much faster than most NATO nations. So we're not in NATO yet, and that's because of the first question that you asked. There are a few NATO members that have not recognized Kosovo's independence yet. And I think by this, to be very honest, they're harming the security of the entire European continent, because it's strategically important for NATO to have more NATO territory in Europe rather than less NATO territory. But leaving that aside, our modernization right now has been mostly focused on modernizing the weapons system, because we went through a transition period, a transition plan that ends in 2027 or early 2028. It's a transition plan that we've built together with the United States, and it had foreseen a very gradual way how the Kosovo Army can develop, including on purchase of weapons, as well as leadership capacities and training capacities, and focus on people. Right now, we think that we were going too slow. So we think that we need to speed it up. We have the support of our US partners to speed it up. So there's a lot of focus on purchasing modern weapons. That's the main focus right now when it comes to spending our budget. And the reason why the focus is that is since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and because there's a constant Russian interest in our region to destabilize our region, we need to be able to defend ourselves. So this is, the peace that we have cannot be taken for granted. Things can escalate quite quickly because of Russia's interest and the way how they use one of our neighbors as a proxy to destabilize the rest of us. And the Western Balkans historically has been quite a volatile place in the world. Right now is very peaceful, and the latest Gallup International study shows that Kosovo, because of the rule of law reforms that we undertook, is the #1 safest country in Europe. It was published a few days ago, #1 safety in Europe, #3 in the world. So we're very, very safe, but we have a crazy neighbor. So we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared. We have to be vigilant. It's very important that we're vigilant. And, when you prepare for war, that's the best way to live in peace, because you prevent it. So prevention and deterrence is key. We have amazing soldiers. We're recruiting quite a bit. We recruited thousands in the past few years, and there's going to be more recruitment. So there's also focus on training and people, not as much as I would like to as a Supreme Commander of the Army, but since we're planning to double down the budget in the next few years in this coming mandate, the idea is to increasingly also invest in modernizing the training capabilities and invest in people as much as we do in the weapons. But these past 4 years have been mostly modernizing the weapons system to be able to defend ourselves from those who want to take us back to the past. So far, we've been very, very successful in thwarting these possibilities, but it's always, as you know here, always better to be strategic in terms of prevention.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I'm Colonel Shbib Abikers from Lebanon. So I come from Lebanon it's a small country, almost as same size like Kosovo.
Yeah, the best food in the world.
Thank you. And similar challenges, surrounding challenges. So my question is, what do you think is the most beneficial instrument of national power for small entities, which is more beneficial for those entities to be dealing with a challenging surrounding?
Thank you. I would say it's people. It's people. And I've always believed that a country's impact in the world should not be determined by size alone, but also by the story it has to tell. And when it's a story of resilience, you can have an impact well beyond your borders. And when you have brilliant young minds and people who represent you in the best possible way, that outweighs the impact of the number alone. You just saw Lieutenant Colonel Krelani. He might be one here, but where are you? I'm very proud of the impact. So it's one, but for us, it's a lot of impact. And we've had many that went through the halls of this college. One of them is our Minister of Defense right now, many generals that are leading our army to new heights. It's always been our people. Just imagine, in the 90s, we were living under occupation. We were not allowed to have our schools. We were not allowed to have our hospitals. We were not allowed to have our army or our police, nothing. And we were 95% of the population, yet the 5% would not allow us to have any of these because of the genocidal regime of Milosevic. And when our liberation struggle, our liberation army was created at a time when we had no weapons, we had nothing. They had to build everything from scratch to defend the innocent people from the genocidal regime. It's, I would say, one of the very few cases in history when an army so outsized by the genocidal regime managed to win a war, of course with the support of allies, a heroic war, and it happened because of the people. When you have resilient people, you can always do great things, no matter the number of people that live within your country or the size of your territory. So I would absolutely say that's the best bet that we have. Our bet is in our people. And maybe when you go back home, you can convince Lebanon to recognize Kosovo's independence. So there you go.
We'll go back to the back right and then over to the middle here.
So part of the education here is
I have an excellent relationship with the military because I've created the impression, I hope it's a good impression, that as president, I want to support a process based on merits, a meritocracy process when they go up the ranks. That has been very, very important to me, for them to know that if they work hard and if they serve their country with discipline and honor, they will very soon come to one day come to my desk and become the generals that they deserve to be. So this has been a great relationship in the past 5 years that I've been the supreme commander of this great army. I've seen how they've gone from strength to strength, and I am present in every ceremony. There's no president that has been more present among the army before. Also supporting the women of the army, obviously, but being there in every single graduation ceremony, being there in every important moment, including them in every important moment for our country, and just making sure that the people see and feel the pride of our army. You know, you had your parade this year for America's birthday, and we do it every year because our people love it, and ours is not in warm weather, unfortunately. Yours is on the 4th of July, ours is on the 17th of February, so it's freezing cold. It's always -Celsius degrees, that is. And but people stay in the streets for hours just to see their army. You cannot imagine the feeling. Just about 2 decades ago, you know, we didn't have any of those feelings, the feeling of being free and just, you know, tasting the sweet taste of freedom. And now to see our army marching down the streets and to know that they are the defenders of freedom, there's a feeling second to none for everyone, including for the little kids who go out and, you know, they all want pictures with our army. They are our biggest sense of pride, together with our police, who are the most professional police in the region. So it's a very good relationship. Obviously, I always ask for more and more and more and more. So I'm very persistent, and sometimes I might seem as overly ambitious to them. But I mean, I think for the army, there's, you know, no star that they cannot reach. So it's always good to challenge them a little bit more than we challenge others. So so far it's been a very good relationship, and one of the things that I very much champion is the great relationship between our army and the US Army. So most of our most important generals and the leadership of Kosovo have studied in the United States in different military academies, including here. And because I also studied in the United States, we understand each other, I guess, better. It's what the US schools give you. So it's that relationship with the United States has been very important, and you probably will see us quite often around here and in other military academies.
Hi, ma'am. My name is Carrie Mead. I'm from Seminar 15. We don't make noise. We just golf clap. My husband served in Kosovo in 1999, so
wow.
Nice to hear you speaking today.
Thank you for his service.
Yeah. You talked about America's legacy in Kosovo. What do you hope your legacy as the president of the nation will be?
Oh, that's a question that I'm still not ready to answer. There are, look, I hope people will talk about what Kosovo has achieved in these past 5 years rather than what I have done as a name. I think every single person has the chance to contribute and serve their nation, even when you're outside of politics. So for me, it has been, you know, a historic opportunity to be at the helm of my country during some historic times, very, very challenging times in terms of security, I would say, for the entire Europe. But I do hope that the people of Kosovo will know that defending your country, no matter the cost that you have to pay, politically or otherwise, has been the model of politics that I've represented defending your country inside your borders, but also outside your borders is one of the, I would say, most noble missions that one can have, but also it's an extremely difficult mission. So these were very difficult times to lead, even for big nations, powerful nations, and let alone for a country like Kosovo. So navigating around the world during these years has been extremely difficult, extremely difficult. Kosovo was not a priority for anyone, to be honest. And when you're not, they tend to forget that you even exist. So managing to have a voice in the world during these years has been very difficult, but I think we've managed it in a way that no one else has in the past. So, you know, it's about, you know, effectively defending your country's interests, whether inside or outside your borders. And that has been what I've at least tried to do. I tried my best, and I hope that's how the people will remember me. And my favorite thing, you know, when I invite schools to visit the office of the president, and there are a lot of kids who come because it's the house of the people, and they come and I ask them, okay, who's the next president? All of the girls raise their hands, like each and every one of them. And we're talking about a country that had, you know, traditionally a very patriarchal society, and we managed to gradually change that so that, you know, everyone can feel that as long as they work hard, they can achieve anything. And, you know, being president is just one of those, but it's great to see how all the little girls now, they know they can do it, and they can do even bigger things, much larger things than what I've done. So.
Good afternoon, Madam President. I'm Doug Willig, and I'm honored to be a classmate of Fjalimi. The perspective that our international fellows bring to our seminars is invaluable, and he brings it every single day. Just yesterday, we were walking our historic monument battlefield, Gettysburg, and we were talking about how a story really can connect a vision to the people that provides identity, and then in turn develops courage, wholeheartedness. In your country, given your fresh independence, how have you, in addition to the military parade, really sought to develop that story for future generations of leaders?
That's a very good question. But in fact, in Kosovo, there are so many of such stories. Everywhere you step, you're inspired to do more. You're inspired to defend freedom and defend peace. And you're also inspired to do more also outside of your country and to help those in need. Because when we had our hour of need, America stood with us. The West stood with us. You came to our rescue. So now we're trying to give back. I mean, just to mention, not just the battlefields, but for example, for us, the most important one has been the battlefield of the Yashari family, where our commander of our army during the war fell, but not just him. He fought heroically for days, and it was just him and his family against an entire army. Imagine a story when you have a few people versus thousands and thousands and thousands. And at that time, Yugoslavia, led by Milosevic, had one of the strongest armies in the world, not just in Europe, one of the top strongest armies in the world in terms of weapons. And our commander, Adem Yashari, was fighting with his family alone against this entire army. Ultimately, after days and days of heroic fighting, they fell heroes, but he was killed together with his entire family. Actually, 2/3 of those who were massacred by the Serbian army afterwards were women and children as young as 6 and 7. And, you know, the Ashari family memorial now is a place where we go to not just remember the cost of sacrifice and the cost that we had to pay, which was too high for freedom, but at the same time, you know, to get inspiration to defend this freedom at any cost. And everywhere you go in Kosovo, you see families that have lost almost everything. They've lost their loved ones. You know, we have the highest number of children killed per capita of any war in former Yugoslavia. We still have thousands that are missing from the war because once the war ended, Serbia took many of the bodies of those that they had killed, civilians, and put them in massive graves inside Serbia. And they still keep them in massive graves. So 26 years after the war, mothers still have the graves of their children open because the bodies of their children have not been recovered yet from those massive graves. They need a place where they can remember their children, where they can lay a flower or a wreath. And this is a very big wound because there's never been justice for all of those crimes. Those who committed the crimes never paid a price. They even deny the crimes as of today, and let alone deliver justice. So everywhere you go in Kosovo, you see the high cost that we had to pay for freedom, but at the same time, there is this immense sense of pride for the men and women that made this ultimate sacrifice so that we can live in freedom. So practically for our kids and for everyone who visits, there are so many locations, so many stories, so many sources of inspiration of a people that never surrendered. Although, as I said, for us, it was not just a war of a few years, it was hundreds of years, generation after generation, until ours, each and everyone had to go through a war. And our kids are the very first generation in the history of our nation that have only known peace. The very first one ever. So there's a lot of such stories in Kosovo, and especially stories that can inspire the future soldiers of our army to do the best that they can to defend not just the honor of the Republic of Kosovo that is today, but also the honor and the memory of those who have given everything, including their lives, so that we can be here today and taste the freedom that we have.
Time with us this afternoon. My name is John McLean.
There are plenty, unfortunately. But perhaps to mention one, because I also barely mentioned it in my speech, we're not talking about traditional wars alone. And the laws of war and international law in general, the rules that are applicable today have been written in a different era, at a completely different time. Now our adversaries are using completely different techniques. And when they use them, you can't necessarily invoke international law as it is. So the modern interpretations of international law are necessary, but sometimes these are simply interpretations. They're not necessarily something that you can use in court, whether we're talking about the International Court of Justice or other international jurisdictions. And for that reason, I think there are a number of international conventions that would require modification because the modern threats that we're facing, be it cyber attacks or just hybrid warfare in general, are, I would say, moving on rapidly. And with technology and AI coming in, our adversaries will seek to make us weak, whether within our armies or within our political systems or our democratic legitimate institutions, without ever stepping into our territory. That doesn't mean that that is not war. It's simply we don't have all the instruments of international law that we need right now to fight them effectively. And we're talking about what I call this triangle of evil, with Russia, China, and Iran also working together. we're not talking, these are not democratic countries, so they do things very quickly because they don't have to go through rules. There are many good sides to democracy, but one of the sides that makes us a little weaker is because democracy takes time. It takes time because you have to go through rules, you have to respect processes. And that's why many of our adversaries sometimes, because they don't respect any rules, they walk much faster, whether in AI or different kind of technological advancements that would affect military advancement too. So I think it's crucial, and we've been listening to how the new administration is really investing a lot on this, trying to make sure that America continues to be the leader in the world also in technological advancement. And I think that is crucial, not just for America, but for the rest of the world to catch up and make sure that we don't let our adversaries, just because they're autocratic, be faster than we are in meeting the challenges of today. So I'd say, it's about time that international lawyers sit down with military leaders, with, political strategists, and also talk about how we can positively modify the system in a way that would also meet the challenges that modern warfare and hybrid warfare are posing. So that's just one, but obviously there are plenty that that we're going to have to deal with in terms of international law.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Madam President, sorry. Given the fractious history of the Balkan region as a whole, are there any other fault lines that you see outside of the tensions between Serbia and your country that give you concern that it could flare up into conflict in the coming decades? Thank you.
I don't like to call it tensions between Kosovo and Serbia, because it's that's like when two people equally fight each other. So what happens, and what has always happened throughout history, is that they attack, we defend ourselves. So that's what happens. But unfortunately for our region and for Europe as a whole, Serbia does not try only to destabilize Kosovo. They've been trying to destabilize and destroy Bosnia and Herzegovina. They've been trying to destabilize Montenegro and a few other countries in our region. So I would say the source of instability is clear. It comes from one country. It's not like the Balkans are just this place where everyone kills each other. No, it hasn't been that way. But it's just one country that waged wars on everyone else. The same with Russia. It's Russia, and historically they've waged wars against other nations. As they are doing right now against Ukraine, and they're also trying with the latest breaches of sovereignty against Poland, against Estonia, and we're looking at the new cases of these drones within Denmark and a few others. So it's, I think the moment where our region will face long-term peace and stability is the moment when Serbia decides to deal with its past and not deny its past, and just deal with it and move on. Move towards European Union and NATO and the Western values that these organizations represent, rather than just, clinging to the past and trying to drag us all back. We don't want to go back. We want to move towards the future. We want our kids to continue to only know peace. And we don't want them to go through what we had to go through. We don't want anyone, including the kids in Serbia, to go through what we had to go through. So I think it's important to identify, just like when you do your war games and all of these preparations, you have to identify where the problem is. And in our region, the problem is easily identifiable. It's very easily identifiable. I mean, it's been easy for many decades, but even nowadays, there's only one place from where the attacks come. That's where the stability comes. I hope they will change, but it takes leadership from their side to understand that, as I said, long-term peace requires dealing with the past. After the Second World War, Willy Brandt of Germany kneeled in front of a memorial of the Jewish people killed, and just kneeled in front of that memorial and said nothing. And when the media asked him, why didn't you say something? He said, because I just kneeled because I had to do something that a human being does when words are not enough. You know, in a place called Batajnica in Serbia, they've built military barracks and so on, but underneath it, a massive grave was found of hundreds and hundreds of civilians that were killed in Kosovo, and then in massive trucks, they were put on one another and they were taken to this little city called Batajnica. Hundreds of bodies of young children. What they found were, little notebooks and little toys with the kids, women, including pregnant women, all of whom were killed. And, that was the site of a massive grave. But if you go there today, they've built their own military barracks. And they're giving awards to the generals who led the army to kill those innocent children. But there's not even a little plaque saying, this is a place where a massive grave of innocent children was found. Germany did the opposite after the Second World War, and the model of Willy Brandt, that's what we need. We need a Willy Brandt in Serbia for the region to finally establish permanent peace and stability.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Colonel Melkumyan Sargis from Armenia. Madam President, as Kosovo continues to strengthening its sovereignty and international partnerships, what do you see as the most urgent priorities for ensuring long-term stability and security in the Western Balkans, and how can partners like the United States best support these efforts?
Thank you very much. The first question was, how do I lobby? This is the perfect place now to also call on Armenia to recognize Kosovo. So, I just supported Armenia when there were a lot of options on who should organize the next European political community. I voted for Armenia, so it's about time that we get some support back. But we have a lot of respect for your country, and congratulations on the recent agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Hopefully it will bring more long-lasting peace between two neighbors. Now, what do? We're focusing a lot on our defense. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, most of our region has mostly been focusing on spending on defense in order to be able to defend ourselves, so that we can be ready. Hopefully we will never have to use anything, but we have to be ready. We have to be ready just in case. So defense, investing in defense, investing in prevention and deterrence has been crucial in our case. And how is the US helping? The US is helping everywhere in training our people, in donating a lot of weapons to Kosovo, but now we're mostly purchasing. So we purchase mostly American. We're purchasing a lot of American weapons in our modernization system of our army. And at the same time, we have American troops in Kosovo. And I would say that's one of the most important aspects. Now it's not a big number. It's about 500, 600 troops, but the impact is huge. They're mostly situated in our border, the border between Kosovo and Serbia. So, when Serbia sees that flag, they will think twice or three times or more, and they will better stop than try to do something crazy. So it's been an amazing partnership, and I cannot explain how grateful the people of Kosovo are for the presence of those American soldiers. They outweigh their numbers in terms of the contribution that they give, because the contribution is not just for Kosovo. When that border is secure, the entire Western Balkans is secure. Our countries in the region are so interconnected that destability in one means destability in all. We are just 30 minutes away from North Macedonia, just 1 hour away in the border with Albania, a few hours from Montenegro. And as you know from the 90s, the war starts somewhere and it kind of takes over the entire region, and it's the same similarly in your region too. So it's so important that these 500, 600 soldiers are there as a deterrent, as the deterrent, keeping peace and stability in a region that had never known peace before for centuries. So we work very, very closely in coordinating on defense and on collective security issues, and that is fundamental, and it's in our country's interest.
We have time for one more question.
Hello. Madam President, thank you for joining us today. Okay. Thank you for joining us today.
Department of Community and Economic.
Thank you so much.
Before my role with the state, I worked for so it's no secret. Right now, Ukraine is experiencing. I'm curious to hear a successful case study of.
We work very closely with Ukraine in sharing our story and our example. I think unlike Kosovo, in fact, Ukraine is right now in a position to start preparing for post-war recovery even before the war has ended. We did not have that chance. However, we were lucky enough to have an immense support from our international partners for 10 years in a row, whether in administering the country, building democratic institutions, building a very resilient democracy. We were helped every step of the way. But at the same time, our people created a lot of experience in a way that we can build strong institutions, but also socially cohesive, so that there would always be trust of the people in the institutions. Right now, for example, our institution, the people have very high trust in the institutions. It's always over 2/3. It has been in the past 5 years at least. Over 2/3 of the people trust the institution. So it's quite a high trust. But you know, it took us time to get here, and we've learned that through all of these state building processes on how you build an army post-war. I mean, Ukraine has been independent and sovereign even before the war, so they have those traditions. I think it's going to be easier actually for them than it is for Kosovo. But one very important aspect is, how do you support people right after the war? How do you support the families of the victims? How do you support the veterans of the war? How do you support children that have lost their parents? How do you support women that are survivors of sexual violence? How do you support men that were fighting and then their family who was in the house while the men were fighting, the family was entirely killed? So there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain. There are so many social issues to deal with. And I can't say that we were perfect, to be honest. We tried our best, but there's always a lot of things that are not perfect and that could be done better, and we're striving to do them better. There's support. We have a number of pieces of legislation through which we support what we call the categories that came out of the war, the categories of people that came out of the war, from the women that were raped to the veterans to the families that lost members, the families of the missing persons. You know, on a weekly basis, I meet the mothers who are still missing their children because their bodies are in the massive graves in Serbia. As I said, the families of the veterans, and then we have a lot of army veterans that have lost their limbs and now they need medical support. So we've built quite a resilient system. As I said, it's not perfect, but we're sharing. We've built that through very strong legislation. That is always very important. And the second is to have unity around these issues. It's very important. You have a bipartisan system here. We have a multi-partisan system back home. So that means not just convincing two parties, but plenty. But on these issues, there's been quite a unanimous view on supporting them. So we've built a strong system, not a perfect one again, but we're now trying to help countries that are going through the same, at least be prepared. They have their specific issues, but at least be prepared and start working since now.
Well, Madam President, unfortunately, we are at the end of our time. And so on behalf of the War College and those assembled, I just want to say thank you so much for making time to be here with the War College today. Your experience, your message of inspiration has certainly given us a lot to think about as we work to educate and train all of those in attendance to be strategic leaders in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be with you today. Thank you very much.
Present you with a coin.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.